See, this is earphones now, and I'm. Miss Richards?
Yes.
This is our headphones now. When I'm using the headphones, I think you can hear me very, very clearly.
Yeah. Let me ask the producer what he wants to do. Kyle, he says the headphones work better. Do you want to use the headphones or no? Okay. Just a quick one. You want him to keep the headphones? We have a minute out. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us with this panel that we have on Caneel Bay. Caneel Bay's resort is located on the island of St. John. Islanders took note when, as early as 1952, the late Lawrence S. Rockefeller purchased 5,500 acres, roughly 2/3 of the small island, with the intent of establishing a national park by donating all but 150 acres, on which he developed an upscale resort in 1956, intending for the resort to revert back to Park Service ownership in 2023. Notwithstanding his intentions, some islanders took exceptions to the methods he used to acquire these properties and to what was cited as an increased and alarming marginalization of St. Johnians. One prominent voice at the time was Theobald Mui Moorhead, the second St. John native elected to the legislature of the Virgin Islands, who in no uncertain terms in 1958 posited, "We like tourists, but we will not sacrifice ourselves to make this a happy place for tourists. What we want is a happy island, happy for everyone, including ourselves." Representing his fellow St. Johnians, Mr. Moorhead addressed Congress as part of his efforts to stop what he saw as an attempt to take over the island through its condemnation in a now famous Resisting Condemnation Without Representation campaign. Nevertheless, Mr. Rockefeller successfully entered into a retained use estate, RUE agreement with the National Park Service in 1983, and several businesses have since operated the resort, the most recent being CBI Acquisitions LLC, which took over management of the property in 2004. From inception, the property was a main attraction for the territory, and in particular, the island of St. John. A high-end product and amenities, coupled with a lush, spectacular estate, rich in historic, cultural, archaeological, and natural resources, made the resort one of the most sought after in the region. Since two Category 5 storms badly damaged the island and destroyed the property in 2017, the establishment has remained shuttered and has yet to be rebuilt. This has notably caused strains on the local economy, in particular for the residents of St. John, as they await a resolution to the reopening of one of the island's premier attractions. CBIA has not begun the rebuild of the property since the 2017 storms, reportedly due to stalled negotiations with the federal government. With the RUE set to expire in 2023, The property's future still remains unclear, in addition to the discovery of a number of environmental concerns. This leads us to tonight, where we hope to bring some clarity to the issues facing Caneel Bay and hopefully craft some solutions. We have the privilege to be joined tonight by several persons who all have a unique insight or interest into this particular matter. So before we get started, allow me to introduce you to our panelists for the evening. Ms. Angeline Muckle-Jabbar, Chief of Staff of our Delegate to Congress, Stacey E. Plaskett, member of the 116th House of Representatives.
Good evening. Thank you for
Senator Stephen Payne, Senator at Large, 33rd Legislature of the Virgin Islands.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Pamela Richards. Glad to be here. Looking forward for a robust discussion with all the panelists.
Ms. LORELEI MONSANTO, community activist.
Good evening, everyone.
Mr. Todd Samsel, President, Friends of the Virgin Islands National Park.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mr. David DIGIACOMO, Partner, DIGIACOMO, Jackers and Perko, LLP, Attorneys at Law.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me on tonight.
And Ms. Theodore Moorhead, community activist. And Ms. Patricia. We have two panelists that are actually experiencing challenges using their cell phones. So our team is working on connecting them so that they can join the panel in a few minutes from now. We invited also the superintendent of the Virgin Islands National Park, Mr. Nigel Fields, and he was unable to accept tonight's invitation, but he did send a letter, which I would like to read. The letter is addressed to our producer, Mr. Kyle Davis, and it says, "Thank you and WTJX for the invitation to join a community forum on Caneel's Bay redevelopment this Friday, December 18, 2020. While the National Park Service will be unable to attend this week's program, we will be listening and hope to gain a better understanding of the voices of the community. You are welcome to share this response during the forum. Moving forward with lease negotiations and beginning the next phase of the environmental site assessments at Caneel Bay Resort is an important step and the most expedient way to get the resort rebuilt and operating, which will bring jobs to the local economy and help to bring visitors back to the island of St. John. We want the community to know that any lease would be consistent with all applicable laws, regulations, and policies governing leasing in national parks, including Public Law 111-261, which provides specific authority for Interior to enter into a non-competitive lease with the owner of the retained use estate, EHI, for up to 40 years. In the coming months, opportunities for official public comment will take place during the environmental assessment processes. While we will coordinate on-site logistics with EHI during the environmental sampling, the process will be managed by the NPS through an independent contractor that specializes in this type of environmental assessment and engineering. We will release findings from environmental assessments on our website, and the community will be invited to comment on options for any needed remediation. The NPS is committed to keeping the public up to date and look forward to sharing more information in the coming months. Wishing you and your audience a safe and happy holidays. It's signed Nigel A. Fields, Superintendent, Virgin Islands National Park." Please note that Attorney DiGiacomo has sent a letter of notice to the Department of Interior and CBI Acquisitions, noting serious environmental issues. This letter of notice is the first step before filing suit. We extended the invitation to CBI Acquisitions to the panel. However, they felt that joining at this discussion at this stage would be premature, while talks with the National Park Service remain at an early stage. We'll also be taking calls directly from the public later on in the program to answer questions or comments from the panel. I'll let you know when the phone lines are open. So let's talk about what it was like to grow up with the history and local relevance of Caneel Bay. We'd like to hear from LORELEI, Theodora, and Senator Payne, who grew up on St. John. Let's start
Would
with
you like me to
Laura.
begin?
What was it
Okay.
like
Good
to
evening.
grow up with Caneel Bay as a property?
Good evening, everyone. St. John has always been a diamond in the rough. We have always called it the golden goose that laid many golden eggs. Caneel Bay was a resort that employed a lot of residents on the island of St. John. For years, the tourists continued to come back year after year and ask for the employees who were there, who honored them with their presence, bringing a family gathering to a resort, not just a place to come, spend a couple of days and leave. It was a family environment. It was a more loving, caring environment. We as kids we walked through the properties, we played, we enjoyed the beaches. I remember even back then we had a barge and we would go around on the barge and come up on the sandbar and play and stuff of that matter.
Senator Payne, what were your experiences like?
My experience was it's Caneel Bay. I wasn't born in St. John. I kind of migrated here many years ago. My experience with Caneel Bay was as a musician. I played music. I played on the Sunset Cruises. I played for weddings. Played in the bar. I got to meet a lot of celebrities. My youth groups would perform at Christmas time. We took part in my sons and my kids took part in being elves at Christmas time. That was something we traditionally look forward to. It was some good quality time. I met a lot of good people at Caneel Bay over the years. Some of them were bartenders and waitresses and stuff that I'm still friends with them up to today. So we had some real good positive experiences over the years as far as performing music and going out to dinner. We'd go for Sunday brunches as a family. It was that type of atmosphere, a very family-knit, family-based atmosphere. Those are my deepest memories of being at Caneel Bay.
So both of you would agree that from what you just said, there were no problems of accessibility to the property?
None.
Okay. Let's talk about what happened with the effect of the back-to-back storms in 2017. And I'm going to invite all the panelists to give us an idea of how you saw the property impacted by the storms. Todd?
Well, my experience on St. John started 2 years ago. I've been working on land and water conservation issues, including retained use estate type agreements for 20 years. And so when I started with the Friends, our organization had a real desire, particularly because of the stories like we just heard, to see Caneel Bay operational again as soon as possible. And so from the perspective of the damage from the storms, now that we are 3 years out from the storm, it's been our position that we're behind any effort to get Caneel Bay reopened once we know better issues and details with the environmental contamination concerns and how we do that safely. It's always been our position that we need a vibrant, active Caneel Bay resort, and hopefully one that includes better access for the local community and for visitors to Virgin Islands National Park.
Mm-hmm. David, what were your thoughts on the impact of the storm?
It's going to take more than just a couple of minutes, but I'll try to summarize for you that Caneel Bay has apparently been a dumping site for pesticides, chemicals, and other hazardous waste for perhaps a 50-year period of time. And we now know that Mr. Engel and the Park Service over this period of time have never once made an effort to clean up the environmental mess that we know is there based upon 3 separate engineering reports done in 2012, 2014, and 2017. So what do I think about it now? I think that a lot of work needs to be done to assess the level of contamination, and even more work done over a period of perhaps a year or two to clean up the hazardous, toxic, and other waste that's on the Caneel site.
Okay, but we don't in fact know that no work was done to remediate. So I just want to set that record. It would appear to us that nothing has been done. Senator Payne, your thoughts on the impact from the storm?
Yes, definitely. And just to let you know that on my end, the audio is kind of garbled, so I'm making out like 10% of actually what is being said. So I wasn't sure on what the individual before me said, but the impact as an officer, I took my team out to Caneel Bay as we were doing inspections. I couldn't believe the damage that we saw done to the property. We decided to go from room to room, checking all the rooms, just in case someone decided to, for whatever reason, to seek shelter on the property, and they maybe were trapped after the hurricane. And I couldn't believe the amount of damage. It was nothing like the property that I saw even a week before. And we went out there like for it was about 2 or 3 months to see if there were going to be any type of cleaning done on the property, and there was nothing being done on the property. It was overrun. There were chemicals from certain rooms running out and stuff. But I thought that over a period of time, someone would actually report to the property and start doing some cleanup. We made contact with certain authorities to let them know what we observed, but it didn't appear like anyone was actually paying attention to what was actually happening or going on at Caneel Bay itself. And that was kind of disheartening.
When you say you spoke to some authorities, who did you speak to?
You're extremely garbled. I can't understand one word that you're
Which
saying.
were some of the authorities that you spoke to get the property clean?
If you're speaking to me, I can see your lips moving, but I can't understand not one word that you're asking me. And I apologize.
All right.
I apologize.
Sure. Angie, I know you've been by to visit the property a couple of times over the last 3 years. What are your thoughts?
I was. Well, as you know, Pam, the first time was when I flew down with Congresswoman Plaskett, and she held a hearing as ranking member on the subcommittee on energy and the environment, which is a subcommittee in the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. The hearing was on the impact of the 2017 hurricanes, and we took a tour of the property, and it was just filled with debris. The debris was almost like a landmine. It was just a very sad and dangerous site, and it was very difficult to get onto the property, and we had local senators with us.
Okay. So I think we all agree that the property immediately after the storm and perhaps to today has some access issues because of cleanup. Let's talk about who has the full rights to the property. Yes, Lorelei.
I would like just to interject on David's part. In July 2013, the National Park did do an environmental assessment of that property, and they were refused onto the property to complete their job. And that's, in my opinion, a fault of the National Park, because if you're going to be in charge of protecting this property, you should have done what you should have said. We have the right to come onto this property and do inspections. So just when you were talking about his comment, I felt that I had to interject that, because it is fact that on July 2013, an environmental assessment was done, and even local DPNR was at the scene.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I can also make an argument that in addition to DPNR, the EPA should have been involved also. So there are more than one agency that should have responded to the environmental threat.
Pam, I'd like to interject there also that the Congresswoman repeatedly spoke to Mr. Engel about cleaning up the property, and he refused, over the years. So that's been something that she's been talking about with him from the very beginning.
Do you have any idea of why he refused?
No, I don't. It's that's a mystery to us.
Okay.
Ms. Richards, this is Mr. DiGiacomo. On Lorelei's note, I have a memo that the Park Service released showing that Mr. Engel had specifically refused to give access to the Park Service or the engineers to do any further work or assessments.
Mhm. And let me backtrack to that. I know during a hearing or so, and before, he may have mentioned insurance issues. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. That brings to mind, though, who has the rights to the property. Should the national park not be allowed to come onto the property, or does it have to wait until 2023 to be able to enter the property to make these kinds of tests? Or can the Virgin Islands government or EPA come on the property and make these assessments? There is damage to, I understand we have different chemicals, to include some petroleum products that could damage the water table and so on and damage the environment. At which point can the local or federal government step in to make sure we get the test?
Ms. Richards.
Which of course now is all mute because I understand that Gary has recently agreed to do the tests in the last maybe 2 weeks or so. David?
Well, I think it would be helpful to the people watching tonight.
You're a little bit low.
I think it would be helpful for people watching tonight to know that we're not just talking about some simple contamination by things that are meaningless. There's silver, arsenic, barium, cadmium, PCB, selenium, mercury, benzene, ethylbenzene, naphthalene, asbestos in large quantities, waste motor oil, a significant diesel spill of over 1,200 gallons, and multiple pesticides, which have been confirmed in 3 different engineering reports. So we're talking about stuff that's dangerous to people and animals.
And that brings to mind if any of those agencies didn't have the authority to come in and force the tests.
Mr. To your question about authority on the property, the 1983 RUE document granted ownership of the land to the Department of Interior to be administered through the National Park Service. It included roadways, pathways, things like that. The retained use agreement kept ownership of the facilities in the hands of the holder of that RUE, but the National Park Service absolutely has the legal right and responsibility to ensure that the property is being maintained, is being protected, natural and cultural resources are being protected, and certainly has the authority, in our opinion, to continue to move forward on the environmental full characterization of what the environmental contamination is, how extensive it is, and what the remediation and cleanup options are going to be.
Okay, I understand we're on the right path now because we've recently come to an agreement where he has allowed access. But let's talk a little bit about the RUE, the retained use agreement. There have been several issues that we've heard. I want to read one out. Part of the requirement is that the operator maintain the premises in such a manner that will be consistent with the preservation of such outstanding scenic and other features of national significance, and preserve the premises to the extent feasible in their natural condition for the public benefit, enjoyment, and inspiration. So I want to ask you all, what do you think about, there's been a report that some areas, ancestral burial areas for both pre-Columbian and the enslaved Africans have been bulldozed. And of course, the prolonged closure for the last 3 years has denied the public access. What do you think about that in terms of compliance with the RUE? David?
Well, if I could, here I'm holding a memo, June 25th of 2010, by which the Park Service memorialized the Gary Ingalls Group had done significant amounts of excavation and construction on the Caneel site without obtaining any approvals from the federal government as were required under all the laws and regulations. including at one point in time bulldozing about half of historic slave quarters. I'm told by former employees that worked at Caneel that they have found human remains on every single beach on the resort, which would be important archaeological finds. So Mr. Engel and his group have consistently not followed the recommendation, not only recommendations, but requirements of the retained use estate and the park regulations.
You know, you can't bulldoze that much land overnight. So I would say to you that we can look to the Park Service and their oversight of the property and see that we may need to buffer that a little bit, because that kind of damage doesn't happen in 24 hours. What does the delegate think of that? Have you heard of that letter, Angie?
No, I have not heard of that letter, and we will definitely look into that. But the delegate absolutely supports the preservation of St. John's history. That's absolutely a priority. It's important to our culture. It's important to our history, and also to our economic development as well.
And would you say that the 3-year closure is in defiance of what is required for the RUE?
Well, Pam, I would have to read that before I give that opinion, but to me, it would sound like that. But I think that national parks play an important role in that accountability as well. And our local government.
Any thoughts from the other panelists?
Yes.
I would just say, in a previous letter that I sent on behalf of the Friends to Secretary of the Department of Interior, we cited that very piece of the RUE that you read and suggested that, in fact, CBI Acquisition's lack of restoration and management of the property in the 3 years since the storms, and certainly citing some of the other issues that other panelists have mentioned, we feel that they have violated their responsibilities under the RUE. And we actually suggested that the fastest way to move on reopening and restoring Caneel was for the Department of Interior to find that violation as means for extinguishing the RUE and immediately being able to move to a competitive bidding process for new lessees on the property.
Lorelei?
I think in the final analysis here is that I'm not going to play the blame game because we're moving forward. You just said the Engel CBI has agreed to have an inspection. So they're trying to move forward. I think that the thing here is that the people of the residents of St. John have not been able to communicate effectively with the national park in reference to this whole, and our delegate. We have not been able to communicate effectively with you on what we really want. So people are entering into agreements, they're having all these contract talks, but you're not listening to your community. You're not listening to our needs. You're not listening to, okay, yeah, you said you're going to bring us jobs. What kind of jobs? We need to be more specific. Caneel Bay has, hello?
I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Okay.
Caneel Bay has not paid taxes since its inception. I don't think we should award them any more EDC benefits. You know, there are several things that we need to revamp and reconsider. We have a territory, it's in tough times. Yes, Caneel Bay was a resort, but excuse my French, the S expletive did not happen to St. John. What we did is we grew. People started their own little businesses. You have a lot of Airbnbs. We changed our dynamics. We did not die. We did not cry. We pulled up our big boy pants and we proceeded to enhance ourselves. St. John did not crumble. It didn't die. So can we look at a new dynamic as to how we can be an effective partner with CBI? Because it appears to be they're the ones who are going to get this hotel once again. But how do we make it work for the betterment of the greater good of the community and not just for them?
We have to work out ways to communicate better. What do you think some of the challenges have been?
A lot of the challenges have been is that having, like I said, having conversation with our own delegate having conversations with Ingle, having a true partnership with the national park, with them actually coming to the people and talking to us and with us. You know, it has been in the past, I myself have worked diligently to call meetings with the national park for things that are going on. As a community person, I shouldn't have to be the one doing that. We have the senator at large, we have our governor, we have our delegate Congress. Instead of having all these closed door meetings, come to the people, discuss with us, talk to the people who are actually working there. After the hurricane, they were not even offered a bottle of water. These were things that were discussed. You know, these are human beings. They're not just creatures that come to work to collect menial monies.
May I?
Okay, well, I know that the delegate has had several town hall meetings about Caneel Bay.
That is
And I
true.
know that one was planned around March and it had to be canceled just because it was at the onset of COVID and they were going to be talking with the National Park Service. But we probably could have a lot more of those meetings on a regular basis with the community.
That is correct, Pam. And I believe that the delegate was the last government official to have a town hall with St. John on the National Park Service. I believe, Ms. Monsanto, that you were there. I don't think that we have seen the local government have a town hall and not even national parks. We did plan one in conjunction with national parks, but national parks canceled. That was before the election. They had a moratorium as to, you know, when they could have these public meetings. I believe now they can have those public meetings. We can only suggest these things to NPS, and we're constantly having conversations with them to have the and encourage them to have the town halls, but it's up to them to schedule it. And I'm glad that you mentioned the EDC, Ms. Monsanto, because that's a very part of the job creation and the tax base creation.
Okay, so we see Senator Payne is back online. There's been a call for more town hall meetings to discuss Caneel Bay, so maybe your office can be the organizer for some more of these. Did we just lose him? Yes, okay. All right, we'll make a note. So, David, you had talked about some of the environmental issues that were at Caneel Bay. Would you say that these were all part of the storm, the ones that are petroleum related? Is that something that came because they were damaged in the storm, or are you saying that some of these things were there from before?
No, Ms. Richards, the 2012, 2014, and 2017 environmental reports, which consist of several hundreds of pages, documented that those chemicals, those wastes, those hazards were there long before the storm. For example, at the Honeymoon Beach area, there's a dump site that could be 25 feet deep where people have been dumping, where Caneel has been dumping waste, including hazardous waste, for approximately 50 years. So the waste that's there that was documented in those three reports came before the storm.
And would you say that they have been exacerbated by the storm?
Well, I can't imagine that things got any better, but we are not aware.
I mean, for instance, is there an active leak of petroleum product?
Well, since we are not allowed to have access other than to go to the beach, it's impossible to know at this point in time. There are other areas of contamination, for example, up above Caneel, where employees have reported that barrels of DDT sat out in the open, rusting and leaking DDT all over the area near the catchment basin. I'm holding in my hand asbestos samples that were just brought to me in the last few days. And you can clearly see if you look in the bag that it's asbestos that was brought by some employees to me who used to work on the site. They tell us that there were roofs and other parts of buildings there where the asbestos was taken off and then buried at the Honeymoon site, the dump site. So I would imagine that those chemicals and that waste are still there, and it's going to take a considerable effort to find out what's there and how to remove it at this point.
Okay. So, Senator, we have been talking about some of the environmental concerns at Caneel Bay. And if we really have 2 years left on an RUE, what would you say would be a reasonable time to not only clean, but to rebuild and repopulate the site?
Okay.
Are we looking at 2 years from now, which would be the end of the RUE anyway, or are we looking at 5-6 years from now?
Well, I don't want to speculate, but until a team goes in there and really sees how the chemicals have the damage they've done to actually the property, to see the extent of the damage that has been left. Because, like I said, from back after the hurricanes, there were, like I said, storage containers with placards on it that showed that it was poison, like poisonous chemicals that were leaking. And one of my staff texted me and told me that you asked about the agencies that we contacted. We contacted DPNR, we contacted the National Guard, Public Works, Vitima, to let them know what was happening on the property. And unless we can get a true evaluation of exactly the environmental damage that was actually done to the property, I don't want to speculate and say it will take 1 year or 2 years. We have to get that study done first. Once that comprehensive study is done, then we'll be able to move forward. Because who knows, the property might be so severely damaged, it might be 10 years out before the damage can be repaired. But until we get a comprehensive study of what's all the extent of the damage that was done at the property for all of these years, that probably could have been prevented if something was done immediately after the storm. I don't want to speculate. I'm hopeful that it doesn't take any more than about 3 to 4 years. I'm hopeful.
And Angie, has the delegate taken a position about these environmental concerns, many of which have been listed by David before?
Oh, well, like I mentioned to you, before, Pam, the delegate has been speaking to Mr. Engel about cleaning up the property from the storm, from the storm. So it's been about 3 years now that she's been having this conversation, and she's definitely concerned about it. And we will work with whomever it takes. NPS, I'm sure EPA will eventually get involved as well. We have a good relationship with Region 2 administrator, and it's important that this gets done and it starts really quickly. I believe following the press release from the national park, Interior hopes to start getting to the site sometime in January, February, and we will hold them to that.
Okay, I think we may have Patricia Varlock on telephone. Okay, she's going to be coming on, but can we talk a little bit about the effect that the 3-year closure has had on our local economy? Lorelei?
Basically, like I stated before, St. John grew. We didn't die. People started their own small businesses. They started Airbnbs. They filled the gaps. We are a productive society. It gave people income that they didn't look at before. However, it did displace people who had long-time housing because people were making greater money with the Airbnb and stuff of that nature.
And Todd, have your members noticed any changes in the impact of the local economy?
Well, certainly, I would say a restored Caneel would be nothing but positively additive to, as Lorelei says, a wonderfully vibrant St. John economy. But I would say, going back to earlier comments, I do not assume it's a foregone conclusion that a future Caneel Bay resort or property is being owned and operated by CBI. Certainly in 2010, when 111-261 was passed, it probably made a lot of sense to think about transitioning from the RUE to a lease with the National Park Service. And there's a big difference. A lease arrangement gives the Park Service greater oversight on what's going on the property. It ensures better protection of the natural and cultural resources It also provides for economic incentives, economic payments, lease payments between the leaseholder and the Park Service that will help not only the national park and its operations, but provide funding back into the local economy. Now we're 2 years out, a little more than 2 years out from the end of the RUE. And so in my mind, it begs the question, does it still make sense to think only about a 40-year non-competitive lease with the current RUE holder, or should we be going back to the community? And this is our position. We should be going back to the community. We know we have interested parties in helping the St. John community and the National Park Service restore Caneel. Certainly there's other options. And as Senator Payne points out, it's going to take time to fully understand the environmental impacts and concerns and begin restoration. And so now's the time to have these conversations about what our alternatives are, because certainly St. John's economy will only benefit from a restored Caneel, regardless of who's running it in the future.
Okay, I have Theodora Moorhead online with us right now. Can you hear me? Theodora?
Hello? Yes,
Hi.
I can hear you now.
Hi, we were just talking about the effect that the shuttering has had on the local economy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
You're talking about what?
The closing of Caneel Bay for the last 3 years, what impact it's had on the economy?
Well, I think I think it's been very bad for the former workers of Caneel Bay. I mean, there's only one other hotel on the island, which is the Westin, and many people have lost their jobs. But as far as I'm concerned, I am not interested in that entity coming back again, because there have been very bad reports on how they were being treated, the employees were being treated. And I think after all these years, Caneel Bay should really be an area or a place where we Johnians can benefit from it. Outsiders have benefited for the past 50 plus years, and I think it's time to change course. I would like to see Caneel Bay develop into something that would benefit St. Johnians.
What type of property do you envision?
Well, we don't have a place for a theater. We don't have a place for cultural events. There could be all type of movies, anything, all kinds of cultural events that a space, a theater, a place where folks can come and vend their products.
So you don't see a possibility wherein whatever operator there was, whether there's a new one, if an RFP is put out, that all of the concerns that you just mentioned could be written into the new agreement, the concession agreement, so that you can have a theater, you can have a place for local vendors, or are you suggesting that you don't want to have anything else to do with the current operator, and that an RFP should include those things? Or are you saying that the property should revert simply for no hotel at all?
I think it should revert to no hotel at all.
Okay. Any thoughts from the other?
No hotel at all. I think I don't know how exactly that would be would come into fruition, but if the national park is in charge and owns that property, then the national park should take the initiative now and make a true contribution to St. Johnians that will benefit us, we can make money also from that entity.
Okay.
We all just have to get together and decide what would be more beneficial to St. Johnians.
Mhm.
Every entity on the park is managed by an outsider.
Okay. Hold that thought. Thank you for your, I'm going to bring in Patricia Varlak. Lost her again. Angie, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if I would go as far as to say that I wouldn't want to see a hotel, but I would definitely want to see that the property is more community friendly in the future. It can open up to having additional concierge, different probably folks, small business vendors locally selling their goods, their artistry, books. I think it just needs to be more open to the community.
Would you say that there's a good relationship right now between the property operators and the community?
It does not appear to be that way now.
Any thoughts from the other panelists? Senator Payne?
Oh, thank you very much for that, Ms. Richards. Definitely, there hasn't been, especially with the recent management, they've lost that the whole community, the sense of being a good community partner over the years. It seemed to become, after a while, all about money, about making money and not worrying about the people's life that were impacting. And yes, they could have areas on the property where vendors can have small stores, so local people who have local vendors who sell local wares should have a place on the property. It should be a place set up where they have a partnership, let's say with the UVI and the agriculture department, so they can start to grow their own food on the property, make the resort as eco-friendly as possible. I think in this time, whoever takes over ownership of Caneel Bay, I think that there should be a resort. It provides income to a lot of Virgin Islanders, but it should be more community. They should have more partnerships with the local schools on the island, with local vendors, with the university. Make it such that it's almost like I wouldn't say a community-based hotel, but something that where the residents can grow, whereas they provide us like job training. So this way, if you go to college, you come back, you have a degree in agriculture, you can find employment there. You can go to school for hotel management. You can come back and get a job there, and eventually even branch over into building your own your villa or your own small your small business that can be a spin-off of what you learned or what you experienced being an employee over the years at this resort. It's a good idea. It has a good idea. It was for many
Let me
many
ask
years.
you and Angie a particular question. To your knowledge, has anybody approached CBIA to include more local businesses or to do some of the things that both you and Theodora just described? Because they're great ideas, but have we taken them to the operator?
No,
It's
but I
been
think, oh, I'm sorry, Senator.
no. You
would
go
you
ahead. Go ahead. Ladies first. Ladies first. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if anyone else has been in direct contact with Mr. Engel, but I believe that these are conversations that are up to our local government and agencies, the appropriate ones as well, including the EDC, our local legislators. They should come to the table and make those demands as well.
Knowledge, no
It's
one
been a
actually has
challenge.
approached Mr. Engel to say that these can be ways to improve your property and the relationship that we have with the government. So I don't want it to appear as if he said no. It could very well be that no one has brought these suggestions to him before.
Right.
Well, I've been trying to reach out to him. Unfortunately, I think he was left with a bad taste in his mouth interacting with several meetings that he had in the past. So he's kind of reluctant to reach out
Okay, but this
to
was
return
after
phone
the
calls and
storm you're
later.
referring to. So
Right,
the property
right.
right now is shuttered. So he would have to fix the property, rebuild it before he could
Right.
make changes in the infrastructure. But I'm suggesting that we simply reach out to him, since between now and 2023, if any rebuild is done, that some of these things could be done to accommodate some of those suggestions. I have Patricia on the line again. I'm going to try and get her opinion. Patricia?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. We're talking about what the relationship is between CBIA and the community, the current operators, and some suggestions were made as ways that we can bring more local products, more local cottage industries to partner more with the current operator. And we have found that while we have some great suggestions, we really don't have any, no one is aware of whether or not we've actually taken them to Mr. Engel.
Okay.
So what do you think the relationship is with the operator and the community?
Well, first of all, I was listening earlier before, and I see that up to now we haven't done anything with Caneel Bay. And me being a taxi operator and a tour operator, it's been a very long time, because for me, St. John has been placed and back one for a very long time. And I don't know, it's been a long time since we haven't discussed Caneel Bay and stuff like that. We haven't even discussed anything about Caneel Bay, how we can open Caneel Bay again in the future or whatever. We haven't heard anything. We haven't discussed anything. So I think more than likely, I think the Senator at large, or the senators, or the people, we have to look up for people in St. John, the indigenous people. So here it is now, we're coming to this panel today, and I listen a whole lot to everybody that's on the panel. But at this time, I think that I'm agreeing with Ms. MONSANTO that the senator at large need to have a lot of town meetings and so forth, so we could decide what we're going to do for the island of St. John, for Caneel Bay, or for the indigenous people.
Okay, so Senator, we've given you some marching orders for the 34th.
Definitely,
Okay,
definitely.
And to the members of the public. The number is
just to let you know, before
718-3339. Okay, thank you, Pat. So the public is welcome to call.
Pam,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to interject something.
Senator Payne?
Are you hearing me? Are you hearing Mr. Senator Payne?
Yes,
Asking to
ma'am.
be
Yes, ma'am.
acknowledged?
Yes, Ms. Yolanda. Yes, Ms. Yolanda. I can
Okay,
hear you.
you didn't, okay. For a brief moment, you mentioned the insurance. Caneel Bay collected at least $32 million worth of insurance after the storm. And a good portion of that is part of debris removal that insurance companies paid for. So we need to make sure that the monies he received for debris removal, that the debris starts to be taken care of. The national park, who is the lessor, should make sure that that has been adhered to. We are here tonight talking about different things in reference to Caneel Bay. We really need to talk about their management style. Nikolai had problems. He would fire employees. He broke the system where he would only let employees work 8 months out the year or 10 months out the year, not pay for 2 months. And then those employees would have to go and collect unemployment, which became burdensome on our economy. There are a lot of intricate things that happened during this time that we have not talked about today, that we really need to address in reference to having communication to start a new bargaining chip with CBI. We have to change
Based on what you just said, it sounds like we need to involve the Department of Labor.
We need to, yes, the Department of Labor. There are several other entities as well. As I told you, as I said before, I am not a proponent for giving them more economical development money. They have not paid any taxes for the last 50 years. As a resident and a property owner in St. John, my taxes are extremely high because more than 58% of St. John is owned by a national park. So are you going to become, is a national park, CBI, and the residents of St. John, are we going to become a partnership, or are we going to still be splintered as the future progresses? We have to change the playing field here. We have to communicate more effectively. We have to make the people who are actually in charge, the national park. I am so happy to hear that the Department of Interior, Mrs. Halen, I believe her name is pronounced, I hope I pronounced it correct, will be our new interior person. She is an, excuse me?
Helen.
Okay, she's an indigenous Indian American, and I know she understands the plight and the problems. So I hope that she will be an effective communicator to making a lot of changes for the upcoming future.
Okay,
Ms.
let's take a
Richard?
call from one of the lines right now. Good evening. Thank you for calling. This is WTJX.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, this is Harris Vikram.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Go ahead.
Yes, am I going to
You're live.
ask the question now?
Yes, you're live.
Okay, I'm live.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, hello. Hi.
We can hear you. Go ahead, Harris.
Okay, hello. My name is Harris Vikram. I'm with Island Green Living. And first of all, thank you for taking the time, all the panelists, for what you have shared. And I want to take up on the most important thing, in my opinion, in addition to green and the environmental issues, is economic impact to the community. And Senator and I had a discussion this morning, and I believe Senator shared some of the concepts, the kind of jobs that we can create. The jobs need to be the catalyst, and with at least 2 to 3 years of time building their culinary program, their school of agriculture can play a huge role. And the way that some of us envisage, and certainly these are some ideas which can be vetted, this resort that they're going to build should include to be off the grid. They have enough land to do that, and they should be able to have all their gardening, the food, right from the resort, and get our local students from the university and from St. John trained in the science of agriculture, aquaponics, and also growing right in with the latest technology. And there are other resorts around the world that they pay for these experiences, these additional revenue items, getting local vendors involved in a more kind of a setting. In some of the resorts around the world, invite the local vendors to set up small booths and have a marketplace.
Okay. Harris, it sounds like we need to get you a seat at that table when the National Park Service puts together that RFP. Thank you for calling. We have another caller. So we're going to go on to the next call, but I understand, David, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I think it's important to note that LORELEI and I and a number of other residents of St. John got together a year and a half ago and I put together a 10-page outline of what Gary Engel could do to run a resort that is friendly to the people of St. John. And to this date, Gary Engel has never responded to the 10-page memo a year and a half ago, and he never responded to my notice of a pending lawsuit, even though he got it on September 28th of 2020.
The end date for that? For a response? David?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there a date that they must respond by?
Under the law, I had to give a 90-day advance notice before I could sue. I served the notice on Mr. Engel on September 28th. On December 28th, I can actually file a lawsuit in the United States District Court against CBIA and the Department of Interior for their failures to remediate the hazardous waste on the Caneel site.
Okay, thank you. We're going to hear now from Jerry. Jerry? Thank you for calling.
Hello.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi.
Go right ahead. The panel is listening.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
So I have a question. It's a very simple question. Based on CBI's lack of management or mismanagement of Caneel, why is it that the Park Service and the Department of Interior continues to allow CBI to operate at Caneel? It just seems to me that there's not even an issue of whether or not they should get continue to operating there. It's just some kind of a 60-year lease. Why are they? And I've been following this for a long time, and it seems to me that there's criminal activities here involved here at Caneel by CBI. Why does the Park Service allow this company to continue to operate there?
We'll have to follow up with the Park Service to get the answer to that question, Jerry. And do you think you could provide some insight there?
Yeah,
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I believe that.
Angie?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I believe that. Well, first of all, CBI does have the legal authority to renew the lease, and unless National Park finds a reason not to, they will negotiate to renew it. So, whereas the community feels personally that NPS should not, I would venture to think that National Parks or Interior has not found a reason why they shouldn't. And I can definitely confirm that, but that would be my response.
Okay. And I understand that you have another appointment with all of the maneuvering that our delegate is doing to make sure that not only our community, but the national community is taken care of. So we want to thank you for participating in the panel.
Thank you for having me.
Safe, my friend.
I want to say that, this is an issue that's very close and dear to the Congresswoman and to many people here in the U.S. Congress. Congresswoman Plaskett met with Speaker Pelosi just a few weeks ago, and she reminded us that she honeymooned there. So this is something that's very personal to many members of Congress here, and they have very fond memories of Caneel Bay.
Great.
And happy holidays, and we hope to continue the dialogue with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So we don't have any callers right now. Are there any points that we haven't brought out that a member of the panel would like to discuss?
Ms. Richards, if I may, I think the problem with what has happened over the years is that we have a lack of a paper trail of complaints and violations that we fail to document, to send to the Department of Interior to let them know what we've actually been experiencing, and even to the management of the national park and the mainland to let them know what has been happening at Caneel Bay over the years. So sorry about that. So without a lack of a paper trail, it's hard for them to deny someone, or at least if they have a limit, there's a small amount of complaints. But if we document all the complaints and violations, every time it happens, we send it off to the mail. We send it to the mainland. They will have a folder, so this way, when it comes time to renew, they can say, well, these are the issues. These are the issues that have been permeating in the Virgin Islands and the St. John for years now, and you haven't addressed them. So it's not in our best interest or the interest of the people for us to even consider renewing at least with your company.
Okay. So we do need to improve communications between us, the park, and the operator.
Mr.
Todd?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if we put together all of everything we find through a very thorough assessment of the environmental issues on the property, coupled with the fact that we have a violation of a long-standing legal agreement in the RUE and failure to maintain the property, coupled with the number of other issues that have been raised by the local community in terms of the treatment by management publicly or through how they've handled workers and things like that. I believe there's a long list of reasons why, even though the Department of Interior may have the legal authority to enter into a non-competitive 40-year lease, particularly with coming up on only 2 years left of the existing RUE, there's actually a very long list of reasons why maybe we shouldn't, and we should be asking the question, what are the other alternatives? And again, we know there's a long list of parties that have expressed interest in working with the St. John community and working with the Park Service and Department of Interior on what a different future could look like for Caneel Bay. So there are options. And probably a long list of reasons why we should at least have those conversations.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like the Virgin Islands community has to dialogue with the Park Service so that we can have some input in the RFP process. And that way we can make sure that even if the current operator is given the right of first refusal, if we were to come up with different parameters, that he would also have an option to fulfill what we have said tonight are some of the issues that we need to have, such as a teaching school, which was a good one, happens around the world. David? David, you're muted.
One of the things that's happened consistently is the Park Service and Gary Engel have refused to engage the people of St. John ever over these issues. I would beg and implore the people of St. John to step forward, to ask to be heard, to insist that the Park Service and Gary Engel don't ignore us any longer, and that they stop doing things to us and start doing things with us. We can't do this alone. The Park Service and Gary Engel have to come to the table with us to have this conversation for this to work. And so I would implore Mr. Fields, as a superintendent of the parks, to begin a process immediately to engage us in a meaningful way so that we, the people of St. John, finally have a chance to have our say about how this new Caneel agreement could work.
Yes, David, you're absolutely right, because Mr. Engel, he's looking out for his interests and his investors. The park is looking out for the interests of the park, but they're not allowing anyone to look out for the interests of the people, of the residents. So that's a very good suggestion.
So can we call upon you, Senator, to partner with the delegates office and the National Park Superintendent to have regular town meetings?
Definitely on that. Definitely on that. You have my word on that. Definitely on that. We were looking to schedule some town meetings early in the year, but unfortunately.
But even if we do them virtually like we are now, the point is to get the three entities together so that the community can have a voice.
Yes, I was saying earlier, we've been trying to reach out to Mr. Engel, but he doesn't respond. He doesn't respond. That has been
for assistance for that.
Yes, that's also a very good suggestion. That's a very good suggestion.
LORELEI?
I would like to say that I have spoken to Mr. Engel. He learned a lot when he came to St. John about things he didn't know. Usually what happens in upper management is you hire someone to do a job and you go along your merry business and then you don't really know what's going on, not to give him an excuse. But he did learn a lot while he was here. No excuse given. I am still saying that the people of St. John, we have reached out to say to our delegates to our senator at large, we need to be at the playing field. We also have reached out to the national park. You know, the national park itself, you know, there's so many suggestions and ideas that can occur here. The national park mandate to hire locally is not being fulfilled. We have things going on St. John. We have youngsters who are getting themselves in trouble because they have no place to go. We used to have, when I was a child growing up, you had Mr. Milton, you had Beaver, you had a whole gamut of people who worked in the national park. The park was, it felt like it really belonged to us. It was our park. Right now, it doesn't feel like it belongs to me. When I ask the children, where's the park? They're looking for a playground. And that has been going on for some years. We have to change the dynamics. My suggestion would be is that we hire locally. We have a tour that goes, let's say 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, that goes through the Caneel Bay property, that's guided by someone who knows about the fauna, the landscape, and things of that nature. We can incorporate ourselves with whoever takes over this property. But we have to put what we want on paper and not have secret meetings in the back door with certain individuals. That doesn't help us. Because when we hear things like that are going on, it agitates us because we have people in the community who are hurting and have moved on since then. But we have to be more diligent and not just depend on the representatives who are just doing things for themselves and not for the greater good of St. John.
I agree with what you're saying, Lorelei, and I also would like to say that we also have to be mindful of how we speak to people sometimes. In my discussions with Mr. Engel, it's always been very respectful. Anything that I have suggested, he's taken very good suggestions. I think sometimes the way that we approach people is part of how we get the response that we get from them. Now, because I have had some interactions with people, and they're not always the most friendly. You can't always bully somebody into something. And if that's the approach that we've been taking, I think we need to change our approach also. We'll get much more response from the national park, from Mr. Engel, from the delegate's office, if we are a little bit more respectful. The way that we want people to talk to us, we need to talk to them that way. It's not always beat somebody over the head to get a response from them. And sometimes it actually creates a wall that is insurmountable. So I would say that as we continue with this process, that we are mindful that if we want to get the prize, if we want to get something that is a partnership truly between the Virgin Islands and the operator, that we are more mindful of how we approach and make demands or make requests for partnerships. Any thoughts on things that we can do immediately outside of having town meetings to get forward movement on Caneel Bay? Yes, Todd? You're on mute? I think you're on mute.
We need to come together as a community and with a common voice, begin to put together this list of
Could you speak a little bit
ideas.
more forcefully?
Sorry, I was just saying, I think we need to come together as one voice, as a community, and put together the list of things that we would like to talk about. Can you hear me? Can folks hear me?
The crew is indicating that your voice is very low right now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sir.
Okay. So, yeah, just saying that I think we need to come together with one voice to speak with the Department of Interior, to speak with CBIA leadership, and to have a common conversation with what we as a community would like to see happen with the future of Caneel Bay. And so we can't continue to have 20 different points of entry into the various entities that we want to talk to. We've got it. We're talking around that tonight. We've said it. And so to answer your question, we've got to come together as a common voice to talk to the National Park Service, to talk to Department of Interior leadership. Certainly we have opportunities with new leadership coming in, and to talk to the leaders at CBI Acquisitions. They are going to be the entity that's running Caneel Bay for the next 40 years. We've got to be able to talk to them as a community voice.
Agreed. I think it's very important how we go forward, and if we really want to have this done, we again, I think how we approach this, that we don't come to them with 16 different ideas, but we come with one compact idea that can be managed and executed well. So we've reached our time. Okay. Any thoughts on what Todd just said?
Well, Pam, if I could, you brought up an important point about how we should be respectful as we approach this. But I would tell you that respect goes both ways. The way the land has been mismanaged, the way the people have been hurt who work there, employees who were disrespected, laid off, the historical and archaeological remains that were disturbed without getting permits, failing to do anything to repair the property in the last 3 years. You know, those are all signs of disrespect of the land, the people, the property, and the process. So this has to work the other way, where Mr. Engel and his groups and the Park Service begins to respect us as a people and what some of our needs and some of what our wishes are.
Mm-hmm. I would also suggest that some of those agencies that have oversight to make sure that the law is followed get their act together also. So I'm going to give each of you about 2 minutes to wrap up. Tell us what your thoughts are going forward. We're going to start with ladies first. You're muted.
You got me now?
Yes.
Okay. In the final analysis, the players are not really here at this table tonight, which are the National Park and Caneel Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they're listening in from afar and reassessing what they have heard tonight. But this is just only the beginning. I think that WTJX, I thank you so much for having this forum. I hope that you now will have younger St. Johnians partake in another panel to see what their direction they would like to go. We have to look at this whole thing holistically. We are an aging community, so we have to look and see what we're going to leave for them. So I hope that you will invite them. I will assist you if you would let me, inviting those individuals to partake, having a serious discussion on their future as well. Thank you and have a good night.
Todd?
Well, likewise, Ms. Richards, thank you for your leadership tonight in facilitating us. And thank you, WTJX, for stepping up and doing this. The Friends has been consistent in our position for quite a while now. We are thrilled that CBIA and the Park Service have announced that they're moving forward on the assessment of the environmental concerns on the property. We're fully confident that the Park Service is going to work to do that thoroughly and correctly. I think you're right, EPA and others will be involved depending on what's found. So we're really happy to see that happening, making sure that we don't have safety issues for residents, for visitors, or for our ecosystems, marine or terrestrial. And so we're looking forward to that process playing out. And we've been calling for, and this is a great start, for more engagement with the St. John community about what the future of Caneel looks like. So thank you all for participating, and know that we're just happy to be at the table and helping to move things forward.
Thank you. David?
Well, thank you. This has been an unprecedented opportunity on behalf of the people of St. John to talk about what may be one of the most important issues that we're going to be faced with in the next decade, or if there's a 40-year lease, for the next half century. So Thank you, Pam Richards and WTJX for this opportunity. As a member of the Vice President of Island Green and as a member of the board of Friends of the Park, these issues, of course, are near and dear to me. And as a resident of St. John, there could be nothing more important to me than protecting the incredible beauty and the resource of this island and for the people of this island and the park. So this is a critically important conversation, and I want to thank all of you, all the panelists, and you, Pam, and WTJX for this opportunity.
Thank you. Senator, I'm going to let you wrap it up.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Richards. Thank you to the panelists for taking time out of your precious schedule to meet with the community in such as this forum. I'm going to personally reach out to the delegates office, the national park, the governor, and CBI, and a certain group of the residents, as we can accommodate all of the residents of St. John, to ensure that we still have a discussion and chart one course moving forward. I believe the future of the resort can be bright, but there has to be a strong community partnership. That had an emphasis on that, a strong community partnership. I want to take the time to wish everyone out there season's greetings, a joyous and prosperous new year. Thank you to the listening and viewing audience for taking time out of your schedule also to be a part of this process. Thank you to the individuals who called in, took the time out to call in. Your sentiments were appreciated, and the advice I received tonight, I will definitely follow up on. Thank you once again to WTJX for holding this forum. It was very informative, and I look forward to sharing this information with my colleagues. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator, I'm going to put you on the spot now. January 11th is your swearing in.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we look forward to maybe by the end of the month having your first community forum?
The end of December or January? Yes, definitely.
Yeah, because we can get you running to have a virtual forum to continue this discussion.
Definitely on that. Definitely on that.
Great. Happy to hear that.
I know you will.
I'm going to make sure you do it.
I know,
All right,
you're going to.
Our time for this evening, but I hope everyone who tuned in tonight had the opportunity to hear all the answers to some of those burning questions that we've had, and yet you left a little bit better informed. We'll continue to host panels regarding this topic as the situation continues to unfold. You just heard Senator Payne agree to hold in the first month of the next year a new community panel on the discussion that we're having tonight. We're going to have some virtual forums with the legislature. So please leave a comment on our WTJX Facebook page. We didn't get as many calls as we anticipated, but you can leave a message if you like for us on our Facebook page. And from all of us at WTJX, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to personally thank the WTJX team. They have been excellent as usual. I want to thank our panelists for taking the time to be with us. We had two panelists that we didn't quite get to pull in, Ms. Varlack and Ms. Moorhead. We'll pull you in on the next one. Thank you very much. Have a safe Christmas and New Year's. And please, see you this time next year or before as we go forward.